So today's speaker is Michael Johnson, who is the president and CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Dane County. In his 8 years as CEO, the club has made significant accomplishments. They developed a 5-year, $15 million plan that resulted in more than doubling the number of children and families being served in South Central Wisconsin, tripled the number of employees, and grew their operating budget by 318%. Last year, Michael addressed the Rotary International's President-elect Training Conference in Itasca, Illinois, that I had the opportunity to attend, and he has also addressed a number of other Rotary clubs. Today, he's going to talk about the 10 qualities needed in a nonprofit leader. We look forward to your presentation, Michael, and we have made a contribution to Rotary International's Polio Plus Fund as a way of saying thanks for speaking to us today. As I welcome him to the podium, I want to remind you if time permits for questions, I will be out in the audience with the microphone, so please wait as our program is being recorded. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Let me first say it is so good to see so many faces in this room, and it feels good to be back in Wisconsin. Just some of the faces that I know in this room, from my good friend Laura Gallagher, good to see you, to Henry Sanders, to Scott Humberson, to Susan Smith, to Wesley Smarks, Bob Sorge, Juan Lopez, our good friend from the YMCA, the new CEO of that organization, and so many others. I am thankful to be here today. Susan Lipp and her husband Jonathan, I didn't see you back there. Good to see you all as well. So I want to spend my time talking to you all about 4 things. One, I want to talk about the nonprofit landscape in the United States. 2, I want to talk about the economic impact of nonprofits in Wisconsin. And then 3, I want to talk about some of the outcomes that we have achieved over the last decade at Boys and Girls Clubs. And then I'll conclude my remarks by sharing with you what I believe is the 10 characteristics of effective nonprofit leadership. So let's start with, many of you all may or may not know this. I know Steve Goldberg does. There's more than 1.5 million nonprofits organizations in the United States. If you were to look at the nonprofit sector as if we were a country, we have the 16th largest economy in the world, and we generate about $1.7 trillion in revenue all across the United States through these 1.5 million nonprofit organizations. If you look at our economic impact across the country, 1 in 10 jobs come from the nonprofit sector. Then if you look at us as a workforce, we have the 3rd largest industry in the United States behind retail, trade, and manufacturing. Here's what our economic impact is in Wisconsin. There's more than 30,000 nonprofits in our state, and we employ more than 12% of the state's workforce. Our sector just last year generated almost $50 billion in revenue, and collectively, we have about $90 billion on our balance sheets. Wisconsin is a very generous community. Last year, Wisconsinites gave $2.7 billion to the 30+ thousand charities throughout our state. But let me share with you, despite how generous our state has been and how generous philanthropy has been in our community, we have some challenges that we have to face in this state that we can no longer ignore. One, most of everybody in this room know about this. We have one of the highest academic achievement gaps in the United States, and it's unacceptable for a community like this and for our state. 1 in 6 kids right here in this county live in poverty, and I'm being told the average age of a homeless person is 8 years of age. 1 of 9 kids skip meals at least once a month because their families can't afford to simply purchase them a healthy meal. And the crisis continues. This we should all be ashamed of. And this should be our charge moving forward to make sure that our babies can read and write. You're looking at somebody that grew up in the projects in Chicago, somebody who didn't know how to read nor write when I left Chicago Public Schools at college proficiency. And there was intervention that helped me to get my bachelor's and my associate's and my master's degree. And it is unacceptable that only 36% of our kids in Madison can read at proficiency. So even though that number has gone up a little bit over the last 5 years, this needs to be a priority in our collective community to make sure that our kids can read and write at proficiency. If you break the data down either further, 3 out of 5 of our white kids can't read at proficiency or are reading at proficiency. 1 in 4 American Indian kids are reading at proficiency. 1 in 5 Hispanic kids read at proficiency. And then when you look at kids that look like me, 1 in 10. For this great city that has so much to offer, we are failing our kids in a way that's unacceptable. If you look at the summer months, studies have shown that during the summer months, low-income young people usually lose about 2 to 3 months of reading achievement when they're not active and engaged in reading during those summer months compared to middle-class and upper-class kids. This is something that we have to address and invest in our community. More than 40% of school-aged children are unsupervised at home. Most young people get in trouble between the hours of 3 to 6 p.m., and this is an issue that we have to tackle in our community. For those who are fortunate to graduate from high school, only 14% of low-income students graduate from college within 8 years. I was one of those students. It took me 8.5 years to get a bachelor's degree because I had to take 2.5 years of preparatory courses at Malcolm X College on the west side of Chicago because I couldn't read and write at college proficiency. And a lot of our kids right here in Madison is experiencing the same thing. They're going to MATC. They can't take regular college courses because they're behind, and it's starting as early. Actually, it's starting in kindergarten. We have some communities in our city where only about 50% of our kids are prepared and ready for kindergarten. So back in 2012, what did Boys and Girls Club do to begin to address this issue? We had never had a strategic plan. We laid out a plan back in 2012 that was built around 3 pillars that we wanted to address. One, we said that we would work with the school district to create the largest public-private partnership in the Madison School District with 90% of our kids graduating from high school and being prepared for college and/or careers. Our second pillar, we said we would quadruple the number of young people being served in southern Wisconsin, outside of Madison, and also looking to serve both urban and rural communities all throughout southern Wisconsin. And then third, we said that we would begin to grow our human resources, our human capital, that we would diversify our revenue streams to ensure that we have a measurable impact on the lives of young people in our community. So here are some things that we have accomplished over the last decade, and I want to share this because these are the things with the right team, the right board, the right people, the right revenue mix, you can create an impact in the lives of whether you're on a board, whether you're in a leadership position. This is a city that has enough wealth, has enough education, and has the right will to get things done for young people and families and those who are the most vulnerable in this region. Back when I started 10 years ago, we went from serving 1,800 young people in 2010 to over 7,500 young people from 2 locations to 11 locations. We're now at 8 school-based sites, and we now have 3 traditional Boys and Girls Clubs with a new Boys and Girls Club that's scheduled to open in the Sun Prairie community in January of 2020. We grew our workforce from 18 employees in 2010 to a workforce of over 130 youth development professionals that work in schools during the day, after school, and weekends, making sure that we have folks who are committed to working with young people in our community. We have more than 12,000 donors and volunteers that support the mission of our work, which has grown from 2,200 donors back in 2010. We have more than 50 paid tutors in schools. A lot of people don't know this. We can't transform kids' lives by just serving them after school. We have 50 paid tutors that are in classrooms every single day with teachers in MMSD and in Verona, making sure that our kids are thriving, making sure that they can read, making sure that they are doing their work and taking rigorous courses to ensure that their success after life in high school. We also prepare young people for internships. We know in America that only about 27% of working age adults have a college degree. So we know every kid won't go to college. So we've worked with more than about 70 businesses over the last few years and provided 600 paid internships for our young people, giving them an opportunity to see what this world has to offer. We provide over 165,000 healthy meals and snacks to young people last year. There's a lot of young people, when schools are not open, we have a lot of young people who don't have a place to eat or may not get a healthy, nutritious meal. At our clubs, we have full-time cooks that provide healthy meals to our young people, and they get the same meal that you just ate here or the meal you would eat tonight at your house. Our kids get those same meals. No prepackaged meals you'll find in our local Boys and Girls Clubs. Our clubs are bright. They're clean. When I started a decade ago, they used to be dark and dirty. We now call them country clubs in the hood for kids. When our kids come to our Boys and Girls Club, we want them to feel the love and the investment that our community has made in them. We built 2 community fitness facilities, the only community fitness facilities in both Allied Drive and in South Madison, and have made 6-figure investments to make sure that not only our young people got a place to participate in wellness opportunities, but their parents as well. We're the only Boys and Girls Club in the nation that has an avid partnership with a local school district, making sure that young people are graduating from high school and going on to college. We're also one of the fastest growing Boys and Girls Clubs in the nation. The only person I really can't, or actually number 2, I can't pass the guy in Boston. The guy in Boston, his father owns the New England Patriots. And for whatever reason, just can't compete with that guy. We provide transportation to over 200 kids weekly, to their homes, to schools, to our clubs, and in some cases, homeless shelters. This is a big issue with community centers all across this state. We build centers, but a lot of times kids can't get there. And through our partnership with MG&E and so many others, we were able to purchase 8 or 9 vans to bus kids every single day to our Boys and Girls Club. We acquired a nonprofit in Delavan, so part of our strat plan as we grow to serve more young people in this community is to look at mergers and acquisitions, and those are not buzzwords that people like to hear in our sector, but if we're going to be effective, we got to look at creative ways to be efficient. So we acquired a nonprofit in Delavan, and now we're serving young people in rural communities. We also built a dental clinic inside of our Allied Drive Boys and Girls Club in partnership with More Smiles, Wisconsin. Tooth decay is one of the primary reasons why kids miss school. And that's throughout the United States. And that's one of the primary reasons why kids miss school here in Madison. So we wanted to make sure that we hired a full-time dentist and providing comprehensive oral health care for kids that come into our clubs and also to the community in general. We're one of only a few boys and girls clubs in the Midwest that's a licensed child care facility, and one of only a few community centers that is licensed as a after-school child care facility. We also, again, create the largest public-private partnership in the Madison School District. We raise about $1.5 million a year to staff 40-plus tutors, to staff full-time employees, to work with teachers and the principals to make sure that low-income kids are graduating from high school and persistent and going on to college. We are also a 4-star charity navigator organization, meaning just like our good friends at United Way, who is also a 4-star charity navigator rating, that we spend our money where we say we're going to spend it, that we have strong financial controls in place. And these are things that you have to have in place to thrive as a nonprofit organization. This is a chart of our membership growth over the years. We've grown from 1,800 kids on average of about 760 kids per year up to 7,200. When we started serving more kids, our community has been a blessing. As we began to diversify our revenue, we've looked at everything from individual contributions to major gifts to retail campaigns to I've jumped out of burning buildings, swam in lakes, whatever it takes to raise money for our young people. And many of you all have been along with us in that journey. In fact, I think 2 years ago, Laura, when I got in the lake and started swimming, I didn't have a life insurance policy. And my mother-in-law was like, we're going to get you a policy because you ain't Michael Phelps, you're Michael Johnson. So, so I now have a life insurance policy. So we went from 1.1 million in revenue when I started to 5.5 million in revenue this year. And next year will be 6.4 million. And we're creating a new strategic plan. And hopefully, as we lay out our strategic plan and begin to negotiate with our board and our volunteers, that we become one of the largest, most impactful boys and girls clubs in the United States. That's my wish for our local organization. Today with me, I am honored to have members of our education team with us. Alex Gagnon is our Vice President of Education for Boys and Girls Club. And we have Dr. Richardson with us, who is a policy research at the Wisconsin Center of Education Research, who is the principal investigator of an evaluation that we do. We've done several of these, and there's not too many nonprofits in the United States that do these kinds of evaluations. It is a world-class evaluation, and we made a commitment that if we were going to invest resources in schools and ask the general public to support helping low-income kids graduate from high school and go on to college, that we need to be able to articulate and show what the return on that investment is. So let me just share with you some quick highlights. They're going to go public in 2 weeks, Dr. Richardson? In 2 weeks. And that study have shown in the past that our kids' GPAs are higher, their attendance is better, they have less behavioral problems, and at the end of the day, our kids are graduating. And we're not talking about 5 or 10 kids or 10 or 20 kids. We're talking about hundreds of kids. And don't take my word, Google it. Google it and look at what the folks at UW-Madison is saying. So let me share with you some outcomes. We've placed 828 Madison low-income students in college since 2010, 828. These are typically kids who would not have graduated from high school and gone on to college. 2, we have secured in the last 2 years, making sure there are so many kids going to college, they're coming out with a tremendous amount of debt. I was one of them. We have people on our senior leadership team that has a significant amount of debt. So we've secured $4.6 million in scholarships since 2017 to ensure that our young people, we minimize their debt as they come out of college. Right now, today, We have 482 Avid Top Scholars that are currently enrolled in 61 colleges and universities all across the United States. We now have a team of educational experts and coaches that are tracking these kids to make sure that they persist and graduate. Let me just share 2 slides from this study. No one has seen this yet but you and our board. And these are 2 slides that I wanted to share with you. One of the, when you look at success in college, kids who take AP courses and honor courses, I don't want kids to do like what I did. I went to University of Minnesota and got a football scholarship, and I was taking bogus courses like introductory to wrestling. And I was going to get a business degree. And we want to make sure our kids are focused, that they're taking rigor, and they're not just taking classes that's not going to help them. So if you look at that first bar, district-wide, so the researchers at UW looked at similar groups of students, and you would see that in that first bar that similar groups of students district-wide take about 1.9 credits, and the kids in our program, it's about 2.5. But I think what's really, really important, if you look at low-income students of color, that number district-wide, similar group, 1.9, and then our kids, 2.62. These are significant gains. And then when you look at male students of color who are traditionally, particularly African American males, are typically always at the bottom of every chart that you look at. Our kids are at 2.61 on average of 1.6. Then if you look at this next chart, you will see from their study, post-secondary enrollment. District-wide, similar group of students, you'll see about 60% are enrolled in colleges immediately after high school. Our kids, 81.9. And then if you look at the numbers across the board, there's a significant difference all the way across the board. So look out for that report. Dr. Richardson, thank you for being there, being here, and I appreciate you and UW spending time to put this together. So let me share with you why I'm here. How much time I got?
10 minutes.
I got 10 minutes, all right. I always got to talk about Boys and Girls Clubs. All right, so let me talk about what we believe was that secret sauce that has helped us with some success that we've had. We've made mistakes along the way, but for the most part, there was 10 things that I believe that has helped us impact the lives of young people, to create strong partnerships, to help impact and help young people go to college. And these are the 10 things that I want to share with you. 1, board and executive alignment, and I'm going to go through them after I name the 10. Having a leader and leaders that are passionate for the organization's mission. 3, having a team that is empowered, not only your staff, but a team of volunteers that can execute with purpose. 4, keeping up with trends and being able to effectively communicate in the marketplace. 5, attracting and recruiting a diverse workforce. That is critical. 6, showing confidence, but at the same time having humility. 7, having a positive attitude and creating a sustainable long-term vision for your nonprofit. Being persistent and financially astute. And then the last 2 is having the ability to inspire people to achieve greatness, accountability, transparency, and then instead of fundraising, I'm going to say fund diversification. So what does that mean? 1, it starts with the board, in my opinion. Your board, every person that sits on the board should be held accountable for the seat that they take up. So at our Boys and Girls Club, we do an annual board report card. At the beginning of the year, we sit down with our board members and we talk about what our expectations are based on alignment in our strategic plan. And at the end of the year, we grade them based on their board participation, their committee participation, what resources they brought to the organization. And if we have board members who are underperforming, we ask them to step down. We have regular board meetings that start on time and end on time, and I think it's critical that the board leadership team and the executive of the organization is meeting on a regular basis to ensure effective communication. The real work happens in committees. We have a board of 27 board members, and it sounds like a lot, but the real work happens in our committees. We've built up a committee structure of about 100 volunteers that volunteer between our education program, bike ride, policy. That's where the real work starts, and being able to detail a chart of work for them to help bring alignment within the organization. And then the CEO. Every year I get a performance review from my board, and then based on our 5-year plan, we strip it down to a year, and that becomes part of my performance standards. So I feel empowered to be able to go out in the community and do the work and to make sure that our board is standing behind me. 6, having a biannual strategic plan or multi-year strategic plan, and having retreats to be able to refresh that plan. This should be a living document in your organization, not just an exercise that you go through a couple of years. 2, when you talk about passion in an organization, if you're the leader of the organization, or if you don't possess that skill set, staff your weakness. You need somebody that's going to rally the troops. My pastor once said, if you are passionate about your work, you'll never work a day in your life. And that is so true. And when you're not passionate about it, people can feel it and they see it. I'm going to go to the third one, empowering your team and volunteers to execute with purpose. Good leaders never take credit for the work of the team. We have a great workforce between, Janine, Carly, and all the folks at Boys and Girls Club. We have hired a diverse team of people, a bunch of folks who are smarter than me, and they get things done. And I humble my spirit and I learn from them as we look at how we grow as an organization. We have monthly goals tied to our annual plan. And then the third piece, being able to delegate authority and ensuring that your volunteers and your staff are properly trained. That's an issue that all volunteers have, and it's an issue here in Dane County. A lot of nonprofits don't have the capacity to train their staff in a very comprehensive way. Communication is key. Having internal and external messaging plans with timelines. We map out every year what we're going to communicate in January, February, March, what opinion editorials we're going to speak up about. Planning that is very, very critical. Also looking at reports and looking at trends that's happening in the marketplace and studying those issues to make sure that as you plan, that you look at how your organization can be impactful to the broader needs of the community. Not being afraid to tell your story. One of the criticisms I've probably received over the years is that, we post a lot on social media and we're not afraid to talk about issues. We've written opinion editorials. And, sometimes when there's issues that impact kids, sometimes you got to speak up and speak out, even if it's people who disagree with you. This, in my opinion, is a challenge that we face not only in Wisconsin, but in nonprofits all over the country. I go to conferences all over the country. I go to leadership conferences, and rarely do I see women in leadership positions. Rarely do I see African-American men or other people in color in mass numbers in these roles. There are people of color that are qualified, just like when Mary Burke was the president of our board 10 years ago, they found me in the city of Philadelphia, and there are people all over this country that would love to live in this great city. We just hired a chief operating officer who was the head of United Way in Cincinnati. Her name is Dr. G. And we're recruiting her here to be our chief operating officer. And she's an African-American woman with a PhD and 20 years of nonprofit experience. So they're out there, but you gotta have a diverse interviewing panel of volunteers and people that can see things from a different lens. And you got to be intentional about your recruiting and looking at places where African Americans read, like Madison 365, and the work that Henry Sanders should be doing. Everybody in this room that has a business should be talking to Henry Sanders. They got over 1 million followers, and African Americans and Latinos who are on Madison 365, looking at the work that they do every single day. And then the last couple of ones, having humility, being vulnerable and empathetic, and being able to listen. This is a quote that I learned from Chief Ray years ago. When you are a nonprofit leader or if you run any enterprise, seek understanding instead of being understood. I heard Chief Ray say that about 8 years ago, and I love that quote because many times we come with our own views and we see things from our lens, and I've learned over the years to just seek understanding instead of being understood. And then along the way, as you may have challenges in your organization, to be able to show confidence along the way and show small victories, but also to be fearless and to be calculated on the things that you want to speak up on. This long-term vision piece is critical. Coming up with positive ideas, staying focused, celebrating wins, recognizing your team, whether it's your volunteers, and then creating SMART goals built around a roadmap that helps you get to your destination. When we did our plan in 2012, we said that we would have SMART goals. It would map out how we get to each intersection, and then ultimately how we get to our final destination. And then the final one is being persistent and financially astute. One, developing strong financial controls. I would tell you, I had a board member, and I've said this to him many a times, who I didn't care for. And many of you all know him. His name is Steve Lipton. He's now on the United Way board, and I love Steve. Steve was he's the head of Wifley, and Steve would come into our board meetings all the time. What about this? What about that? We need to put stronger financial controls in place. And I'm like, God, we get a clean audit every year. We've never had any issues. We've balanced our budgets. And he would always show challenges that other nonprofits had. And then over the years, some of the things that he was recommending, it actually made us a stronger organization. And so I began to value the feedback that he was giving us, and he helped us develop some of the strongest financial controls I've ever seen. Being able to train all your managers on P&L statements and helping them understand, how to create strong variances, and, in the business world, you all call it EBITDA or whatever you have, where you pronounce it. Then I always tell my team, there's no margin, there's no mission. If you can't finance the work that you do every single day, ultimately you're going to let the people down that you're responsible for serving. Don't be distracted by doubt. You must persist even when doors are closed, and all great things take time. And I would tell you, there are many people in this room who have been supportive of Boys and Girls Club, and there are a few of you in this room who have told me no a few times, but I ain't gonna give up. I'm looking at a few of you all. I'll be calling you next week, matter of fact. And then finally, inspire others to achieve. I know I'm running out of time. And doing things that may not necessarily, I hear people all the time, Michael, you need to stay in your lane. I hear that all the time. It's a criticism I receive. It's outside the mission of Boys and Girls Clubs. So somebody went to one of my board members, they went to Flint, Michigan and delivered 50,000 gallons of water. Oh, they went to Houston with 7 semi-trucks. That's not the mission of Boys and Girls Clubs. Our community saw a need, and in those years, there was kids in those communities that needed our help, and there was this community that helped us raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to help families in need, and we'll never apologize for doing that if our community give us the will to be able to do that work and inspire volunteers. I remember when we went to Houston, we had almost 100 people in the rain filling up semi-truckloads of garbage bags and batteries, and some of you all in this room was there. And then the final one, I promise this is it, looking at data, personal accountability, showing results, and whether they're good or bad. At our organization, if we got good data, we share it. If it's bad data, we sell it, we share it, and we course correct it if it's a challenge, and then being able to improve your technology. That's my presentation.